This is Mr. Impact Wrestling himself, Moose, and you're listening to the Irish Whip.
Hookers? Hookers and Coke?
Hookers and Coke, man.
You're the only pro wrestler I know that wants to do this shit in the morning.
Yeti, you're a f***ing moron.
Put it this way, I think Sami Callihan might as well just change his name to Invader
I
1.
want to know why. Like, he can dodge any question. Like, I'll tell anyone that. You can tell me but I'm going to ask specific questions.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
WrestlingNewsSource.com. All the rest of you yahoos are out there dilly-dillying your little wankers. We're actually receiving real wrestling news.
This is
Brett screwed Brett.
Who are you to doubt El Dandy? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Brett screwed Brett.
Hold two! Arm bar!
Hey, get a nice shot of the brand new Mr. and Mrs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate your hat. I hate your t-shirts. I hate your wristbands. I hate your shoes. I hate your music. I hate the C Nation. I hate everything that you stand for.
Sodas rule.
Yeah, they do.
What's up, TIW Mafia? JP here with Josh, and we have a guest today. He's from Major League Wrestling. He's from promotions
Chikara.
pretty much all over the U.S., including Chikara, which is one of it's one of our favorites, hands down. UFO Wrestling, one of my favorites. He's been all over in his time in the wrestling business. Mark Haggerty, otherwise known as what was it, Adam Markopoulos you got called last week?
Oh, dude, I get called different things all the time. Who even knows at this point? I work shows with people, like 20 shows in a row, and they just call me Adam, like they think that's my first name. But Mark Haggerty, you call me Mark, guys, that's fine.
Cool. So, Mark, I know I've done UFO shows with you. For the past couple of years, you've been kind of their ring announcer. But you've been all around, really. I mean, Chikara Pro, which Major League Wrestling, like how cool is that?
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. You know, to me, it's actually crazier that I would work for a company like UFO, because going up to when I went to and I'm going to refer to Malden. I'm going to refer to Malden as Boston, like a loser, but that's fine with me. But like, I had never been to Massachusetts prior to working there. I had seen Boston and everything, like on TV and whatnot, but I had never visited. So the first time I had ever been to New England in general, New England period, was to work for UFO. So for me, it's just mind blowing to think that a company that far away from where I grew up and where I live now is, as you said, have been employing me for 3 years now. It's crazy.
Now, you are doing now, you're like a social media guru. I mean,
I try.
You got your indie wrestling TV show, The Locker Room Dicks. You got your own YouTube channel going. Your Twitter and everything is just, and you're now doing seminars on that. How important is social media to people in the pro wrestling business?
I mean, it's vital. It's super important. You see wrestlers all the time. I saw a buddy of mine the other day, like, who just had a new daughter, Jimmy Conway from South Philly's Finest, just had a new daughter, and he's just so fed up with like the toxicity that is social media. And he straight up said on Facebook, he's like, if I wasn't a performer, I wouldn't have any of this. It's a double-edged sword, because, as stated, it can be pretty gross, but it's important, especially considering, if you just look at the basics of it, there's so many people trying to do the same thing, whether you're a wrestler or a commentator or a referee or whatever the case may be. And, you could be the best in the world. And if you're not in social media, odds are people aren't going to find out about that. I tell people all the time that if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have a career, not a career to the extent that I do now, not a career that I can live off of. You know what I mean?
Right. How
Mark, and this is me just kind of butting in. JP, when we
That's
do
fine.
interviews with somebody like you is dude, is valuable. It's invaluable. And I sit here and think about when we've had, if people could sit down and listen to how you've gotten to where you've gotten to and how you've done that, and you can pick brains like Bob Evans or Mike Quackenbush or Brian Fury, or the list goes on and on. And I'm putting you in that category because I think what you're doing is huge for what these performers need. I really think that they need separate social media accounts for friends and family, and then who they are as a performer. I also, and I kind of want to get your opinion too, I don't agree with especially the female wrestlers and Patreon. I don't know if you want to go into that, but is that part of, is that okay?
Patreon to me is, I guess it kind of depends. I'll sum it up the best way possible. When I first started selling merchandise, a lot of people were giving me trouble for it because I'm an announcer. And the old school way of thinking is that someone like me shouldn't be selling merchandise. But I believe it was the aforementioned Brutal Bob Evans who told me, he's like, look, if there's people willing to buy it, then you better have it to sell. And that's the way I look at Patreon is like, I don't have a Patreon because I don't really see a market for it. But I'll tell you, I'm really good friends with Jessica Havoc on Impact Wrestling, and
she's amazing.
She's got a Patreon. I don't know if people follow her too much, but just to sum it up, she's got a real Resident Evil-y gimmick, and she plays a lot of video games. And if you sign up for her Patreon, it's not like you're getting a bunch of bikini pictures. You're getting a role-playing game every month. You're getting she sends out these vials of liquid labeled antidote and a treasure map and all this stuff. It's really interesting and inclusive and fun stuff. And I see a lot of people doing Patreon stuff like that. The Locker Room Detectives, we've been talking about doing a mystery kit or something on Patreon. But to the extent of I feel like if there's a market for it, do it. But if there's not a market for it, you just look stupid having it with no subscribers.
Right. So if you're a male or a female and you have the body to be able to do it and somebody is willing to pay money for it, there's absolutely no reason you should not put that out there and make money, right?
Hey, I say make money doing whatever you're comfortable with doing that's legal. That's just my philosophy in life.
Does that come from the years of growing weed?
Yeah. I'm from Southern California. Weed has been legal to some extent since 1996 there. I just kind of, it's just something I did for several years. I grew weed. I sold weed in a store on Wardlow Avenue in Long Beach for 5 years. That was a huge part of my life.
Little did you know, if you got into wrestling while you were doing that, you probably would have doubled your weed sales.
It's so crazy you say that. I say this in interviews and stuff all the time. I was interviewed by High Times magazine, and I was telling them when I first started out in this business, I tried to keep my weed smoking and everything on the down low, because I was like, oh man, these are athletes that I'm around right now. You know what I mean? I don't want to, they're probably on some full jug of water and spinach a day diet. I don't want to. Little did I know, everyone in the business is just oh, is that weed? Give me that weed. I don't want to throw people under the bus, but that's just the way it is.
No, it's just RBD. Nobody else touches that but RBD. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
But you also started out by kind of traveling, or not started out, but early on you traveled with Robbie E., who probably is a jug of water, or at least at the time was a jug of water and spinach guy. So
yeah, and it's interesting you say that. I've actually never even thought about that, because when I did start out with Robbie, Robbie didn't he's one of those he's a normal person where if it's a social thing, he might do it. Now he's got that wellness policy at WWE, so I know he's not. But Robbie didn't smoke or anything, and I remember him being weird about it. But then I got out of that bubble and I realized how prevalent it was.
And they just suspended Samoa Joe, which was clearly for steroids, right?
I have no idea, man. I saw that earlier today, though.
Sarcasm is one of my languages.
But JP, like what Mark's saying is like it's not. Major League Baseball, that's not a banned substance anymore.
No, and I can see why it is in the UFC because it does have the healing properties. Like I use CBD for my back. I don't smoke. I like to drink, as you saw at UFO, but I don't smoke at all. And I don't see why the WWE has it as a banned substance at this point.
I mean, to be fair, and I mean, I don't want to talk out of school. Like, I don't work there. But, like,
not yet.
I don't know why any substances are banned because, like, you know, I mean, the sport is what it is. Like, I could understand, like, I could understand, like, banning, like, methamphetamine or like, you know, like something like angel dust. Like I could, like something that would make you act insane in the ring. But like even like steroids, it's like, you know what, like what are we doing? It's like, oh my God, if Randy Orton takes steroids, he's gonna have an unfair advantage. Well, says who? The writer? Like, come on, what are we doing here?
It's the same way like when they talk about steroids with hitters and pitchers. Like people understand like pitchers were also on steroids. Plus, it takes one hell of a person to be able to hit a ball going almost 100 miles an hour out of the park.
I say let's just legalize them across the board and see what happens. But that's just me. That's like libertarian-minded me.
No. Do you, I mean, obviously you still partake to a point then.
To a point, you know, it is tough, obviously. I had to wean myself off when I started hitting the road more, basically because, it's to the point where, you know, when I was younger, you know, you'd have your supply and then you'd run out and you'd go to get someone to like re-up with someone and so on and so forth. But like being out on the road and not knowing people and being by yourself a lot, you know, you run into situations like where it's like, oh, I don't know if I can find weed anywhere. So like back in like 2017, I started to wean myself off. It's more of an irregular thing now, but it's definitely something I still partake in. I'll never stop. I tell people that all the time.
Now, you did Pro Wrestling Syndicate shows, right?
Oh yeah. I still oh wait, no, Pro Wrestling. I'm mixing that up with something else.
Well, now it's WrestlePro.
Pro Wrestling Syndicate. So Pro Wrestling Syndicate. When I first moved to the East Coast, which was 2015, I was podcasting. That's how I got involved in wrestling. I was podcasting. I was writing for different dirt sheets online. And one of them sent me to Pro Wrestling Syndicate. So I was doing some backstage work with them, but I never appeared as an announcer for them. I never appeared as an announcer until 2017. And by that point, WrestlePro had taken over. And I've never worked for WrestlePro.
See, I wonder, because I used to, who was running PWS at that point? Do you remember?
Eric Pleska and Pat Buck.
Okay.
The announcer was probably David Adams.
Yeah, see, I used to travel down there with Chris Norman.
Yeah, I think David Adams was the announcer there for several years.
Yeah, he replaced Chris after a while. Because Eric switched partners several times, and
oh, I don't know why. I can't figure that
out. That's a story for another day. There's a reason he's. I still.
There's a reason Eric. He promotes women's volleyball now instead. Is what you're saying?
Yes. But that's I used to travel down for those shows all the time. So and they were fun shows. It was different than and you must see this now because like what happens down in that tri-state area is way different to me at least than what happens up in Massachusetts for the most part.
In what way?
The wrestling in ring.
I mean, to me, like, you know, and this is gonna sound like so like. This is going to sound terrible. Like, I watched so little of it.
I'm going to sound like a dick. No, listen, Chris Statlander straight up said, I don't know shit about pro wrestling. All I know is that I was a gymnast. Somebody said, try it out. I did. I loved it. I don't watch wrestling. I don't know anything about it, but I love doing it. So don't feel bad.
You know what's wild about Chris, just real quick, is I'm currently, before I got on the phone with you, I was editing a video. I do a weekly biographical video series. And the one I'm doing right now is about Paradise Alley in Connecticut. And I'm watching a video back from 2017, and I'm walking out to the or 2016. I'm walking out to the ring to start the show with like my heel commentary partner, and this girl in the front row goes to give him a high five, but he does that heel thing where he goes to give her a high five, but then he fixes his hair instead. And I look closely and I rewind it a couple times, and that girl in the front row is Chris Statlander, and it just it blew my mind. When I post this video on Friday on all my social media, I'm gonna do like the little arrow and the freeze gimmick to basically be like, look who it is.
The alien.
But
it was such a difficult interview for us to do because we couldn't but it was so refreshing because we couldn't relate to somebody that was in the industry but didn't know it.
I really like her. I've known her for a while. I'm really happy for all of her success. You know, the cool thing about like, obviously, you know, I don't have to tell you guys. I feel like no one needs to. It's common knowledge, but like with MLW and AEW and Impact and Ring of Honor and WWE and NXT and all this stuff, it used to be, you know, you'd see that like, you know, people on the indies and you'd be like, oh man, like so and so got signed. Isn't that crazy? Like one of my friends got signed. Now I look at all my friends and I feel like I have more friends that are signed that aren't. It's more crazy when someone isn't signed. Like I look at like all my very good, like Danhausen, Effie, like all these. Well, Danhausen did Ring of Honor, but like I look at all these guys, these huge names in the industry, and I'm just like, it's crazy you're not signed. Right. It's such a crazy time. To jump back though to your question before, you know, I think that, you know, the East Coast from Boston, or I just say Boston because that's Massachusetts to me. Yeah. I'm sorry. Or I'll say from Worcester. Is that how I say it?
Yes, you actually said you may be the only person not from Massachusetts that said that the right way.
So from Worcester, Massachusetts, where Beyond is, down to like Philadelphia, is this insane hotbed of professional wrestling in general. And how different it is therein, I don't know. But I tell people, like I just went to Dallas recently with MLW. I go out to Chicago. I go down to like West Virginia. I go to different places throughout the country where wrestling isn't as crazy huge as it is throughout the Northeast. And a lot of these people, like, you know, in Dallas, these are great wrestlers, but they're only working, you know, on a good month, they're working once a week, but most of the time they're not. And that's because there's not shows running absolutely everywhere. In, you know, where we all are, you're guaranteed to have at least one wrestling show on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, usually Thursday, every single week. And that's not only great for the fans, but it's great for the performers.
Right. You can even once in a while up in Massachusetts now get a Wednesday night show.
Yeah, you know, and that's why, you know what, look, someone asked me, and this is no shade to my buddy Pat, but they're like, you know, hey Mark, look, you know, you're on TV and stuff now. You know, you do Chikara, you do all this stuff. You're doing all this WrestleMania stuff. Like, you know, why are you still driving 5 hours up to do these UFO shows? And, you know,
because you love the roadie.
And I tell them, you know, I always say this to people, you know, normal people, meaning people outside of this crazy business, they go and hang out with their friends, and maybe they don't drive 5 hours to do so, but they go and hang out with their friends and they have a couple beers and they smoke a couple joints. Me, that's all I'm doing. I'm going to hang and have a couple beers and smoke a couple joints with my friends, and I'm getting paid to do it. And I do a little entertaining while I do it. And, you know, that's what I always say. But to add on top of that, what you just said, as long as Pat Dillon is running Wednesday night shows, I'll be there until I can't physically get there.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah,
that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
I'm jealous because the only way, and this is going to blow your mind, Mark, like the only way, because I live in Montana, that I get to experience professional wrestling is through a screen. Like, legitimately, I've probably been to 5 live shows in my life. And the way that I experience all of this is through somebody else's eye and perception through a lens.
So, is there no independent wrestling in Montana?
That is correct, sir. Like, the closest we've got is right before Flip went with ROH. There's Flip, Brian Cage, and Matt Riddle all as part of a Defy show in Missoula before Flip took off for ROH. But no, there is no regular long-standing show here. And like I can relate, like you say, drive 5 hours in Montana. I'll literally drive 3 hours to see somebody for an evening and drive back that same night if I really want to.
Yeah.
If I really want to.
Well, I'm from Southern California, and I always tell people it blows my mind. I grew up where like you'd have to drive like 4 or 5 hours just to get out of the state to get anywhere else. And now I live in a place where, you drive an hour, you're in a different state. You drive another hour, you're in another state. And it's just crazy. And in all those states, there's like 30 different wrestling promotions. But I hope the tide changes in Montana, if for no other reason than pro wrestling is my reason for going places. Like I've checked off, dozens of states so far just going for wrestling, and I would love to visit Montana, and I would love wrestling to bring me there.
Oh, and no, and here this is for real. Like Solo said that she's like, let's get a bus or get a Winnebago, and like I'll just load people up on the way there, and we'll have a show, and we'll just go home.
Oh, I'm down to get on a bus with Solo, except here's the thing is like Officer Magnum's going to be on that bus, and Officer Magnum, he was either Officer Magnum or the other one, Officer McMurray is the other dog. One of them pissed on me on the way. It was me, Chris Levin, Solo Darling, and Willow Nightingale driving together down to Flying V in Maryland. And at one point, like, we smelled something, and it was like, what's that smell? I don't know, Maryland. So we just didn't even think about it. And then, like...
Baltimore Ravens, that's what that smell was.
And then something started getting warm, and Chris and I, like, leapt out of our seats as best we can in a moving car, and we were like, oh, my God, the dog's pissed on us. I'll stay in the back of the bus. But that sounds like a good time.
Now... You do something as well, and I think this is probably part of the reason why you travel 5 hours for some shows. You actually load your car up.
Yeah.
And you do what Robbie did for you.
Yeah.
For some of these kids. And that's such a key because I don't even want to put people out there because I don't want to say they've only been wrestling this long because they're extremely talented. Obviously, like, I don't think you would vote for someone who wasn't or who couldn't handle themselves. But a lot of these kids wouldn't get out there if it wasn't for someone doing that for them.
Yeah, that last part is crucial is I have a lot of people that reach out to me and they're like, hey, Mark, can you give me some names of promoters? And, a lot of times I'll send them a list of places, and sometimes I won't even do that because, you can't vouch for you can't put your name on someone that might like disappoint, and that could really tarnish my reputation. But yeah, in these cases, there are some guys that I like to take out on the road with me. And to that point, it's specifically these Chikara guys, Tunku Amir, Devontae, Joshua Wells, Frantic, there's Zero, there's a whole bunch that I've been taking out with me. And, I had this really cool moment. It was several months ago where, it was actually after a UFO show. I was driving from Malden, Massachusetts to Utica, New York for a show out there. It was, I think Pat must have had a Friday night show for some reason. But either way, we were driving out, and I remember, Robbie used to take me out, and he would get hotels that the promoters would pay for, and I would get to stay in these hotels, and it was so cool. Like, oh my God, yeah. I'm out on the road. There's a hotel that a promoter's paying for. Sure, it's not me they're paying for it for. They're paying for Rob, but whatever. That doesn't matter. And now I'm out on the road with these guys, and we've got a hotel, and the promoter's paying for it for me. So it's this really cool full circle thing where, as you said, I'm trying to do for people what Robbie did for me. And I think a lot of these guys, specifically the ones I just mentioned, they're really making a name for themselves as best they can. I know that all the guys that just came to UFO last week, Devontae and Tunku Amir, they were invited to come back for the next show on April 22nd. So, it's important to do that kind of stuff.
And that's huge because the April show, I mean, he pretty much started off the show. I think he actually did it right before your seminar. He was like, if you're not booked in April, please don't ask me, because he's co-promoting that with someone else, so he doesn't have the full card.
Yeah.
So to take the time out, but he also appreciates that those guys, I think, take the ride, and that then they go out and they do what they do best.
JP, we're 25 in, so let's take a quick break. Pay some of your bills.
Yeah.
Good. I got to turn my lights back on.
Yeah, no kidding. Good thing you have that Walmart internet. And then I want to tell Mark the stories. The first story I want to talk to him about is the interview with Frantic, and the second one is the interview with Tunku.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, guys.
That. Oh, sorry, JP. Now you got to edit this. Remember that one time?
We're back.
Remember that one time?
Oh, which time?
Yeah. Remember when you made it so difficult for me to edit that one episode?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So back on the other side, if Mark, if they want to find you on social media, how do they get a hold of you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Mark A. Haggerty, and you can check out my YouTube by going to youtube.com/Mark Adam Haggerty.
And I watched your entire, I think you got 4 episodes up there on your YouTube so far of the biopic series there. I
think I'm up to 5 now. I think there might be 5 up there now. The 6th, it's tough to remember. I think I'm up to 5 up there now, but the new one is coming out this Friday.
I know I watched everything that was up there as of yesterday, and it's just fun. Your life and how it's changed, and I would have never knew that you grew weed for a living. I would have never in a million years would have guessed that. You just don't carry yourself.
Or the fact that you wrote for Dirt Sheets and now you're where you're at. It's
you actually said something in that. You actually said you paid your bills writing for Dirt Sheets. True or false?
Yeah, no, that's true. 100%.
That's incredible.
God, dang, man.
When I was working, this was like 2014, and I was working in politics in Southern California, and I saw an ad on a dirt sheet that I was reading as a fan, looking for writers, and I started doing it part-time, and then it just, I did it so much that it became my full-time gig, and I was doing that for about 2 years, and that led into podcasting, and then that led into doing commentary for promotions, and then that turned into ring announcing, and then I got signed.
Now that you're a ring announcer, or did you have before you kind of blew up, did you have other ring announcers that you sort of looked up to or looked to?
Kind of, I always say that Tony Chimmel in WWE is probably my favorite ring announcer of all time. I really like the way that he said superstar. That was really cool. Whenever I get to say superstar or super or anything, I always do that as an homage. But, I was never an independent wrestling fan, probably much the same as it is in Montana. In Southern California, when I was growing up and up until like 2015, there really weren't any independent promotions. There was PWG and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, but they were at least 2 hours away from me. And, and to me, that wasn't really doable. I didn't have really friends to go with for that kind of stuff. So indie wrestling wasn't really big, and the internet hadn't, there was stuff on the internet, obviously, but like, as far as I was concerned, like Ring of Honor and like Impact were as indie as I knew. And, so I really never had any independent ring announcers that I looked up to. There's guys that I'm friends with that I admire, like a Larry Legend, or the guy I mentioned before, David Adams. I really like those guys a lot.
I know at one point, it might have been the first time you came up for UFO. I think you were with Fowler and probably Robbie.
Yep. Well, I came up with Robbie the first time. The second time I came up with Falaba, Sean Donovan, and Mark Carino from the Heavenly Bodies.
I think it was that time. I can tell you, Rich Palladino traveled about an hour just to see you ring announce.
Well, Rich is a nice guy. I really like Rich.
Yeah, that's, to me, he, like, and you've reached it, obviously. I'm not a judge. I'm not a booker. I'm not a promoter. But, like, if somebody's paying you and putting you on TV, you've obviously reached the height that other people haven't. But to me, like, Palladino is the mark you want to hit. And you've obviously hit it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really it's sometimes tough to think in those kinds of in just that way is like someone like Rich who's been doing this for like 20 plus years, and then someone like me who's been doing it for 3 years. People compare me to him and they talk about me in the same conversation, and sometimes I don't know how to react to it. It's like, all right, well, it's very flattering. There's still there's things that even on MLW, on like on television with a contract for 3 years, there's things that Rich does that I would want to do. I would love to do the collective shows WrestleMania weekend. I would love to work Beyond. I would love to work Limitless, but we each have our niche, and Rich is filling his very nicely.
You're doing a big show WrestleMania weekend, though, right?
Yeah. What?
You're doing a pretty big show WrestleMania weekend, aren't you?
I've got 6 shows WrestleMania weekend so far.
Are you doing pancakes and pile drivers?
No, they've not contacted me
yet.
Well, no. I don't know. That's I think is that WrestleCon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who they would be using. The thing with the thing about Florida is it's
Florida.
Weird. Right? Gross. The thing about Florida is there's so much wrestling talent down there, but like so few viable promotions. There's places, there's like really good places, obviously, but they're few and far between. Like there's like one in Tampa, there's one in Gainesville, there's one in Orlando. They're all over in different places. And then you have all this talent that moves down there because they think Florida's the place to be because that's where WWE is located. And then come to find out, like, oh shit, there's no independence for me to work at. So, so my point being there, I've got 6 shows booked in a state that I've never worked in before. If I get more than that, that would be great. But I assume that some of the local guys will probably pick some up too.
Yeah, and but I think Effie's show is getting a ton of attention right now.
Yeah, Effie's show is sold out. It's sold out. It's poised to be. It's not going to be bigger than Spring Break. Nothing is bigger than Spring Break. That's the WrestleMania of the collective. But besides Spring Break, it's poised to be probably the biggest show of the collective. It's definitely going to be the biggest LGBTQ wrestling show in history. And I've been on some pretty big ones. I've been on all the major ones so far, at least over the past few years. And this one, there's international talent. There's it's unbelievable, this show.
What's really cool? What's really cool? I'm sorry, JP. I didn't mean to butt in, but what's really cool for me is like Randy Myers just won the Defy Championship recently, and is he going to be there? Like, I don't know. I haven't looked at the talent roster if that even if that has. I don't know. Is it?
I have no idea. I'll be honest. I was paying very little attention to it until my name was mentioned. That's just kind of how I am as a person. I'm a narcissist. But like I know that there's like some exoticos coming from Mexico. My buddy Shea Purser, who's done some stuff for Chikara, who's from the UK, is going to be coming over. Those are just 2 that I like. Still Life is obviously going to be there. Still Life is on like 4 shows with me over WrestleMania weekend. We're actually staying in the same house. We're driving down together. Still Life is my WrestleMania travel partner.
That's right.
But yeah, no, I don't know much beyond that though.
How many names right now are in your database?
Hold on.
Okay, you just said database.
I'll explain this after. Mark knows exactly what I'm talking about.
All right. I'm just clarifying that so you don't get judged, just like somebody else saying the website is the most important thing to your wrestling career.
So, my database, you mean like the wrestlers that I announce and stuff, right?
Yep.
So, I have it broken up into 4 categories. There's male, female, tag team, and non-binary. There's one in non-binary. That would be Still Life. There are 131 women. There are 163 tag teams, and there are 1,848 men.
So, can I explain what the database is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong?
Is this what Palladino
Sure, go
keeps
ahead.
all on the 3x5s?
Yeah, so what Mark does is Mark prints out business card size sheets with each of them before he goes to the shows. So he knows the roster before he's going down, prints them all down, comes down, has all the information already done before he gets to the show.
Correct.
To me, that separates you from 90% of the ring announcers that I've seen.
Well, yeah, so I keep an Excel spreadsheet right on my phone, and I edit it at the end of every weekend, adding all the new people to it. And, it's just an app right on my phone, and it's synced with the one on my computer. So wherever I change it, it changes. And what's cool about this is I can share it. So there's a couple of ring announcers that I've taken under my wing in the business, and I've shared it with them so that they have access to it, so that when they're out on the road, they don't feel like, some of these guys are working like their first, second, third shows. So if they have a database of 2,000 names, they feel a little more at ease.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So what I do now, so I kind of like what you said, but with a little caveat. What I do now is, depending on wherever the show is, so like UFO, I printed out cards that are like 3x5 index cards, and on one side is the UFO wrestling logo with the date, and then on the other side is the information for each match. And I do that everywhere I go. And I started doing that with Chikara. I started printing the Chikara logo on the one side, and I just kind of, I don't know, I get like obsessive compulsive and addicted to doing certain things. And I just kind of like one afternoon looked at my schedule coming up and printed out like 50 different logo card batches. And that was one of the things that I think really impressed Court Bauer. So I'm happy I did it.
Because most ring announcers are running around the day of show, 10 minutes before the show, running through the locker room like may or may not have happened recently, trying to find people's music. But just
to clarify, you've been to quite a few shows recently, so it's not just one.
Right. Absolutely. But there was only one Mark knows about.
But yeah, no, it definitely makes it easier. It makes it so, one of the scariest things when I first started in wrestling, and I talk about this in one of my videos, there are 5. There's my prologue, there's BBWF Dynasty, Grimm's Toy Show, Robbie E, and this weekend is Paradise Alley. So this is going to be the 6th.
How much did you learn about social media from Grimm?
One of my things that I talk about in my seminar is the need to post regular content, meaning that you want to get people in the habit of returning to your social media, whether it's your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or all of them, your YouTube, doesn't matter. And that's something that Grimm really kind of instilled in me, because since the day I met him until today, Grimm releases content every single day at like 5 o'clock without fail. And, he's the kind of guy where, like, even if he doesn't have something, like, he'll come up with something, and his way of shooting is kind of like the Locker Room Detectives. We've kind of gone the same way. Is Grimm will get 5, 10, however many guys he has, and be like, all right, here's like 3 different things we can shoot today. I'm going to shoot them all, and then I'll figure it out later. And that's kind of what Chris and I do sometimes, where we just shoot stuff based on who we have, and then we plug it into episodes however it fits.
Now, I wanted to touch on that because I think Grimm gets sort of a bad rap, but you look at his product for what it is and not what you want it to be, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? But the fact of the matter is, he has millions of fans.
He has millions of He has millions of subscribers on YouTube. He has hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter and Instagram. I said it in that video, and I really encourage people to check out that video series, My Life in the Periphery of Pro Wrestling. The one about Grimm's Toy Show, it summed up what I've been saying for years, and the analogy I think I made in the video was perfect, was just Grimm's Toy Show, it's a comedy show about wrestling. It's not a wrestling show. And like I said in the video, and like I've been telling people for years, you can be, Alec Baldwin or Helen Mirren or, an Academy Award winning actor, and you can go and perform in a serious movie and win an Academy Award. But like in that same time span, you can also go on Saturday Night Live and play the president or some other silly character. You know what I mean? So the thing about Grimm's Toy Show is like, I can be on MLW or Chikara and be an announcer introducing Dasher Hatfield, the grand champion, or Jacob Fatu, the MLW champion, and all these serious things. But then I can also go on Grimm's Toy Show and chase guys around with like a rake or whatever I was doing. I don't know.
That's
JP.
Yeah.
On the other side of this, since you took the entire time to stall, so I could not tell the story about Tunku or Frantic.
Oh, great.
On the other side of this break, I'm going to tell that story. Plus, I got a few questions that are Chikara specific for Mark when we come back. Okay, JP, quit stalling.
Yes.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Josh,
hey, what's up, JW Muff? Hey, JP, we're back. This is where you have to stop for a second. Okay? Because I know, you don't want me to tell these stories, do you?
You tell them all you want.
Okay. Mark, here, the first story. Frantic. Unique individual, correct?
Correct.
He needs advice on Twitter.
Currently, I believe, has at least 3 banned accounts on record. Or maybe has been banned for life. JP,
sounds right.
Banned for life? Or can he...
I don't think he was banned for life. I know at least one time, and I did not complain. I actually... thought it was entertaining, but at least one of the times was for threatening to kill me.
Yeah.
Frantic, definitely a bizarre individual. We did a 2.5-hour live video stream on New Year's Eve for the Locker Room Detectives that then went to IWTV, and during which Frantic's portion of the program was hitting on women.
Was he yelling the whole time? Does he hit when he yells? Does he just
in storyline, Professor Nicodemus gave him a potion that made him horny and able to talk, and he was just like walking around spitting game to all the girls at the party, like, "Hey, baby, you've been running through my mind all day." But he was saying it like Frantic, so it was more like, "Hey, baby, you've been running through my mind all day." So that video is also available on my YouTube. It's the New Year Locker Dick's New Year's extravaganza. It's like 2+ hours.
Now the locker room detectives, does that go I mean, you said that one's on your YouTube, but does that go exclusive to independent wrestling TV?
So Chris and I started the show just for fun. For us, we never thought that anyone would like it. We thought maybe our friends would get a kick out of it. Like, we were literally making it because, the thing about indie wrestling and everyone's got like group chats with a bunch of friends, but like indie wrestling, like we've got like 20 different group chats, like half the people are all in them. Like, it's weird, but we figured this would be something we would just share in group chats and stuff. But we ended up putting it on my YouTube, and we put 5 episodes up. I think we put 5 episodes up, and then we talked to Jerry, who owns IWTV, and I'm very familiar with Jerry and IWTV, obviously, through Chikara, and I mean, half the promotions I work for are on IWTV. So, we just talked to him, and we were like, "Hey, is this something that you would be interested in?" And he said, "Hell yeah, of course." So episodes 7 through 20 are all exclusive to IWTV, except for our Christmas episode. We gave that away for free. So if you go to my YouTube channel, on my playlists, on the Locker Room Detective playlist, it has all the free episodes, and then everything else is on IWTV. There's currently 20 episodes. Season 1 ended in the middle of January, and we've already got 2 episodes filmed for season 2, and it returns on April 2nd.
So story 2, JP, stop. Story 2, like, this is legitimate, and you'll verify this with Tunku. When we did our interview, Tunku would not reply or answer to anything that JP said unless he said "sir" at the end of every sentence.
Yeah, I spent an
He's
hour
a dick,
referring
dude.
to him as sir.
He's a dick. The kid's a dick.
But see,
you want to hear a worse story?
Yes.
So after that UFO show, when we went to Utica, New York, we all had like a couple hours to kill. So me, Tunku Amir, Calix the Castigator, Joshua Wells, and Frantic, all crazy cast of characters, all went to like this Revolutionary War site, this like local like state park, just to like look around, have fun. And we were walking through these cabins, and inside one of the cabins was this like fox pelt, like this just like white fur shawl. I don't know what you do.
We all get those as kids in Montana when we're born.
So, but so you get what I'm saying. So like that is what they had in there. And Tunku, you call him Tunku, I call him Akbar. He picks it up. He picks it up inside this little cabin, and he turns to me and he goes, "Hey, you think I should take this?" And I was like, "What? No, I don't think you should take that." And he's like, "No, like for my entrance. I think it'll look cool." And I was like, "No, put it back, you maniac." And then he puts it back, and then we go. And then fast forward like a week later, we're at Chikara, and he pulls this thing out of his bag. He had stolen it.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. What else? Oh, we were also at the Revel, and remember, he's from Singapore. Like he like, you know, real talk, kayfabe brother, but like whatever. He's here on a student visa. He goes to school in Pennsylvania, so he's here on a student visa, and he's only been here for like a year and a half, 2 years. And we're standing in the Revolutionary War Museum, and he's just like staring at this display of like this Revolutionary War. And he turns to me and he's like, "Wait, so this country used to be British?" And I was just like, "Oh man, oh man, I might have some old textbooks I could give you." It was he is genuinely one of my favorite people. He's now on Impact Wrestling. Was it called Gut Check or something like that? I don't know. It's got a dumb name, but
Explosion. Yeah. I believe it's got a green emblem. Trust me, I think it's
but they've got like they've got like this this like boot camp reality show. I think it's called Gut Check. It's on his it's on his Instagram, and he's part of it now. And it's basically like guys on the roster that I've never heard of yelling at guys on the indies about how they're not good enough for TV, and I'm like, oh, cool. But hey,
the Gut Check a while back, and it was like Al Snow and Taz critiquing people with
well, see,
Pritchett.
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I had this one scene, and I don't mean to make fun. That's rude. I don't mean to be a jerk.
No. That's real.
Like,
that's
but like
not
the
rude.
one
That's
clip
real.
the one clip I saw was this guy, and I honest to God didn't know who he was. And he's like, "What? You're gonna roll to the right? You want to be on TV? Get out of here!" And I'm like, "Whoa, it's real on this. What the hell, man? I don't want to watch that. That's uncomfortable."
It's fourth wall stuff that makes people uncomfortable, right?
But
right.
All this to say that I keep wanting to call him Akbar. Tunku is he's only been wrestling for like a year and a half. I've been taking him out on the road for, or maybe a year. I don't even know, but I've been taking him out on the road for several months. And out of every single one of the Chikara students, he has been hungrier than any of them. Chris Levin and I were kind of tasked early on with getting some of the Crucible guys and some of the younger students out and getting them more exposure and more time in the ring in different places. And a lot of them, and I'm not going to name names, but a lot of them really do need to be have their hand held and need dates given to them, and they need to be driven places. Whereas Tunku, he'll go to a promotion. We went to Outbreak Wrestling in Pennsylvania. I drove him there. And then when he was there, he met 4 or 5 other promoters and then got all these other bookings that he's now driving himself to. The guy's busier than I am. So I got to give him credit. I love that guy.
The kid's he's a worker. He's a worker. He
consistently asks me for promoters' names up in this area because he knows there's a lot.
Yep. I mean, when he was there at UFO, he was talking to my dude from Proving Ground. He was talking to Bob Rossi about XWA. He was talking to people about bookings on, like you said, that co-promoted event. Because Pat's got 2 events coming up. He's got the co-promoted show on April 18th, and then he's got a UFO spring vacation show on April 22nd. But yeah, Akbar's one of those guys, man, and that's how I was early on. You got nothing to do. I tell people, I said this in my seminar. I don't know if whatever, but in my seminar, I say to people, it's you got free time at the end of the night. It's 11:30 at night. You're feeling down. You're feeling like you wasted your day. You're feeling like you're not working toward your career. Send a message to a promoter. What's it going to hurt? And that's just, I can't tell you how many nights I've just gone to bed copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Hey, my name's Mark. Hey, my name's Mark. Hey, my name's Mark. And hey, of 20 that you send, you might get 1 reply. But that was always my attitude, and that worked. And that's how Akbar's doing it. That's how the best of us do it.
That's the same attitude that we have when we're trying to reach out to people. Sometimes it will take, with Matt Farmer and Selena De La Renta. It took us, JP, a year? Probably a year.
Yeah. To get everything scheduled.
Yeah, a year between hey, we're gonna figure this stuff out. So, and this is just how it works. And we interviewed Matt, and no shit, the next day Selena reached out. So it's always
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. The only thing I would say to that is, and I say this to people all the time, podcasters, because obviously I've been in that boat. Not, I'm dealing with that and not having people wanting to get back to you. And I'll say Selena De La Renta, I hesitate to say anything negative because we're both signed to MLW, but also she's a hot chick, and hot chicks, I mean, even as a gay guy, I could tell hot chicks, they operate differently than normal people in a good way. But I will say,
it's a different set of rules. There's a different set of rules.
You know what I mean? Look, I'm a left-wing feminist, whatever, and I live in this world where it's look, chicks had it bad. If you want to do you, whatever. But my point is, I tell podcasters and people that write interviews and stuff all the time, it's oh, I want to reach out to this person, but they don't want to. And it's look, anyone that doesn't want to do your show wouldn't be a fucking good interview anyway, because they're just going to be lazy. I didn't ask. I don't mean to curse on your show. Sorry. They wouldn't.
We usually do, so don't worry.
They wouldn't be a good interview anyway, because they're going to be lazy. They're going to want you to do a lot of the work. The people that respond to you immediately are going to be the best interviews. And I say all the time, 9 times out of 10, you go to that UFO show, and I mean, granted, how many people on that show do you really want to talk to? But but my point is, you go to a show like that, you go to any independent show or anything, you ask everyone to do an interview. Everyone's going to do an interview, because even people that are signed to MLW, even people that are signed to Impact, even people that are with Ring of Honor, right, WWE, whatever, you are giving us an opportunity to do one of our favorite things in the world, and that is talk about ourselves. And I'm not even kidding when I say that. We're entertainers, and we all have stories, and the fact that someone wants to hear our story. I mean, you guys actually have listeners and followers and stuff, but I tell people all the time in my seminar, it's look, if a podcaster with 5 followers wants to reach out to you and interview you, do the podcast. A, you get to talk about yourself. B, their 5 followers are now your 5 followers. But point is, like, anyone that doesn't want to do a podcast interview is a dick, and they're not worth interviewing.
I guess that was a point I was trying to get to. And JP, like, I don't want to. Like, we got 5 minutes left because this is one of those things where we come back and we have a 2 and a 3.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely,
the biggest thing for me, and like your journey, what you're doing, how you've done it, who you are, and what you're doing for the business. And this is no shit. Like, we've done this a long time. I've had conversations with some cool ass people, but the fact that you've taken that leap, the question's twofold. Like, when did you know it was time to stop doing the podcast and take it to the next level? And 2, how hard or how much, just like any professional wrestler or anybody that is in this profession that is either a referee or anybody like that, like, what's the struggle like to get to where you're at?
Well, I don't know if I ever really decided to stop podcasting. What happened, in a nutshell, because I know we're on time constraints, is basically I was podcasting. I went to a show, and on that show, the guys they were so hard up to do commentary, but they didn't have the equipment to do it, that they were doing it on live house mics. I always joke they were doing it like Brother Love on Boy Meets World. They were just, they were just talking into the live house mics doing commentary. And after the show, I hit up the promoter and I was like, hey, I produce commentary, or I produce podcasts. At that time, I was actually producing Ryback's podcast on top of my own. I was doing a bunch of different stuff. And I said, hey, I could produce your audio for your YouTube videos. So he invited me to a show to do it. And the show that he invited me to, the commentator bailed. So I filled in on commentary. And then I just got to be friends with the people there. And I went to a couple shows to ride along with Robbie. And one of those shows that I rode along to needed a ring announcer. And that was the first time I ring announced. And that was February 2017. And, as far as like leaving podcasting behind, I still did it for a long time. I still kept up with my own show for a long time into it, but it kind of got to the point where I was just, I was working on so many different things toward, my career otherwise that it was just unmanageable at that point. And as far as how hard it's been as the struggle and all that, you have to make sacrifices and you have to dedicate yourself 100%. I tell people in the last video that I put out about Robbie, he helped me formulate a 2-year plan. And that 2-year plan was one that he followed, that I followed, that I instill in the guys that come with me. And that is basically this. You take 2 years. You say, if those 2 years are starting today, I don't know what today's date is, but you say like, February 24th, 25th, whatever, 2020 is my starting date, which means February 24th, 25th, 2022 is my end date. From those 2 dates, I'm going to put 100% into professional wrestling. If that means losing out on relationships, not going out on dates, fine. If it means friends don't talk to me because I don't want to hang out, fine. If it means that I'm missing weddings and birthdays and christenings and anniversaries, fine. If it means that like I can't adopt a dog that I wanted to adopt, fine. You just have to dedicate everything to it. You need to take faraway bookings in Malden, Massachusetts, 5 hours away for $0 starting out. You need to go all the way to Maine for $30. You need to go anywhere and everywhere to network for 2 years. And at the end of those 2 years, you look back at where you've been, you assess where you want to go, you pull off the smaller places far away that aren't paying you enough, you dedicate to the bigger places, i.e. your Chikaras, your Battle Club Pros, your Primetime Wrestlings in DC, so on and so forth, and then you move forward from there. And that's what I've done. And that has been hard to do. It's been a struggle financially. It's been a struggle personally, but it has been a triumph professionally.
Do you think being a gay man, you had a little more of a struggle to come up in pro wrestling, which is a manly man's world, or how it seems?
No, I really don't think so. I tell people all the time that pro wrestling has pro wrestling is way more inclusive than people give it credit for. I mean, if you talk racially, pro wrestling has been inclusive like long before any other sport. You know, the color barriers of pro wrestling were broken down before they were in baseball or any other sport. And you talk about people that are gay or LGBTQ, whatever. You look back at folks like your Jim Barnett's and your Grand Wizards and so many other famous people like your Pat Pattersons, and maybe they weren't focal points on TV, but to me that's just because society at large wasn't ready for them to be. But as far as pro wrestling was concerned, those people were a vital part of the industry. So I feel like pro wrestling has always been inclusive, at least on the inside, and it's now getting more so on the outside. I would actually say that coming out of the closet was the best thing that I could have ever done for my career. It made me more comfortable in myself. It made other people more comfortable to be around me. And if I'm just being honest, it's made me more marketable as a commodity.
Here's the crazy takeaway from every time we do this with the people that we just like. As soon as you told me, like, you're like, dude, guess who I ran to, and guess we get the interview. I was like, who this time? You said Mark Haggerty. I was like, are you shitting me? Are you for real? Because the coolest thing is like, at some point it was like, we heard this from Ace Austin. We've heard this from so many people, from Anthony Green to even Josh Briggs in messages, is like, when that seat is open, no matter how far you're driving, just take the open seat. Just go. Just go. Just get in the seat. Pay for gas. Even if it costs you money to go to that place, just to get on the show. Am I wrong in saying that, man?
That's Bob Evans philosophy right there. Jump in.
It's exactly what you have to do. And that is how everyone that has made it in this business has made it. Talent, look, regardless of gender, anything. Like if they're on TV or if they're big on the indies, it's because they've got the drive to be there.
JP, I have one more question, dude. And I think it goes along with the post today. Like, how in your journey, in that 2-year journey, Mark, like, how vital has the people, including Bryce Remsburg and Mike Quackenbush at Chikara, been for your rise and where you're at now?
Man, without Bryce, I wouldn't be at Chikara. Bryce met me out on the indies, and he brought me in, and he's the reason that Mike came into my life. And, you know, I tell people all the time, Mike is like my dad, my mom, my brother, my son in some cases. He knows so little about technology in a lot of ways. I have to teach him, but Mike Quackenbush, you know, if I'm just going to speak honestly, like, I've had to take a bit of a step away from Chikara since signing with MLW, and any other promotion, it would have been like, whatever, sucks, but on to bigger and better. Because, I mean, no matter how you slice it, MLW is bigger than Chikara, but my fondness and my affinity and my love for Mike Quackenbush as a person and as a teacher and in everything he's done for me, like, that outweighs everything. Like, I could be signed to WWE, and the way I feel about him is bigger than that. Mike Quackenbush he's taught me so much. He's given me so many opportunities. He's brought me places I never thought I'd be, and I'll never be able to repay him for everything he's done for me. I'm going to try by being on his show this Saturday, but that's the first step to repaying him, I guess.
Now, I want you to now take your time, plug what dates you have, plug your shows, and plug your social media again.
Oh, man. Well,
basically plug Mark Adam Haggerty.
I've got so many shows coming up. I guess I could say that the big ones that I've got on the horizon coming up are next weekend, let's say, on Friday, March 6th, I'm going to be in Bristol, Pennsylvania at the Worldwide Dojo, which is owned by Cheeseburger. They've got a student show going on that I help out at. The next night, I am going to be at Primetime Wrestling for Butch vs. Gore, a big LGBT show with Effie and a ton of people. The show's sold out. The night after that, I'm going to be up in Massachusetts, in Gardner, Massachusetts, at 01 USA Northeast for their championship tournament. And then the big stuff after that I've got are my WrestleMania weekend plans, which basically the Thursday is my busiest day. I've got primetime wrestling at 2:30. I've got Full Throttle at 4:30. I've got it's all in there. I've got Full Throttle. I've got Uncanny. I've got the Nobodies. I've got Pizza Party Wrestling. I've got Effie's Big Gay Brunch, and hopefully some other stuff. Follow me on social media at Mark A. Haggerty. I put out a new biographical video every single Friday, and I think I'm interesting to follow.
You definitely are. And I love
and watch
everything that you
MLW
put
Fusion
out.
every Saturday night on BN Sports and YouTube. Sorry,
JP, here's like the like. There's so many questions I want. Like, I just want like so much more time. Like, so much more time.
I want to sit here and talk to him about Canyon for an hour.
I know.
I'll talk about Canyon forever.
He did a lot for us back in the day, and
JP,
he meant so much to me.
We got time, man. Just tell the story real quick. So I mean, this is it.
The other kid that we used to do the podcast with, and he's still family to me. He's still part of this. He was a Boston cop. Canyon got arrested down in Florida. I had never talked to Canyon, had never met Canyon. I read this on the news groups. I called my buddy up, said, "What can you do?" He calls down to Florida, talked to the cops, and the cops agreed to do a little favor and basically not show up for court for Chris. Chris then comes on our show, and we had a chat room with the podcast. We weren't able to text each other at the time. Like this, we were doing this through house phones. And this was
multiple Skype lines.
I want to say this was like 04, 05.
Yeah.
Chris came out of the closet on the Irish Whip.
Oh, wow.
2 or 3 days before he came out of the closet on the Howard Stern show.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Didn't tell us he was doing it. Just did it. He knew he was doing us a favor by doing it. He was repaying what Joe had done for him.
Well, that's huge.
It was like incredible. So like, and he had come on a couple times after that. Like Chris meant a lot, and he did a lot for us. So that's.
Well, anytime you guys want to talk, I'm definitely down to come back on. As I said, I love talking about me, and I love talking to you guys. You guys are a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do.
And the thing is you wouldn't be getting the information from Mike Quackenbush if he wasn't able to trust you and know that you would be able to pay it forward and pass that information on to the people you thought or feel could benefit from that in a way that he would be proud.
Yeah.
Right. For Mike to entrust you with his students. Mark, thank you. I appreciate you. Love what you're doing. Proud of you. Like how you've come up so quick, and just keep doing your thing, man. And I want to see, I don't want you to tell me what it is. I want to talk to you in 2 years and see what your 2-year plan is from now till then.
Yeah, no shit, right?
All right. Well, it's a deal. Hopefully I'll talk to you guys before then, though.
Yes. I will see you in April. So.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Have a great night, buddy.
You too, guys.
Bye.
Wow.
All right, guys. Yeah,
wow.
How cool was that? Like,
wow.
We ran over. He's such a good guy. Like, just genuinely
nice
person.
Legitimate good guy. Like, I want him to be ungay, my sister get divorced, and then her marry him.
We'll just have you should have a brother. Or you marry him.
I don't know, man. I have so many guys that are I don't want to degrade. It's just it's 2020 that are homosexuals and are that those people and I don't mean that in a degrading way. I mean it in the fact that they opened my eyes to so many things on so many levels that if I wasn't open to that, not only their sexuality but who they were, I wouldn't be able to do this.
But what I like about Mark is
he's just real, man.
Yeah, so
charisma, like even in this, like you can feel the charisma in the interview.
Yeah.
I'm 2 plus the validation with Tunku.
Yeah.
Is pretty amazing. I mean, that kid is amazing as well. It's not frantic. Like I don't know, man. I'm just it was super fun, and he's a super cool guy, and
He
I can't
just took
wait
you
to
way
see what-
behind the wall with Tunku too. I don't know if
Oh no, that's
I don't know if you caught that. I think you but you were way behind the wall with Tunku there.
Yes, I didn't want to say anything. You know,
Right?
I just let that go.
But you think about it, and Quackenbush is a very protective teacher, and he entrusts.
He is so
his
protective
students.
that he won't even talk to us about certain things, but will email or text us what exactly what he has given us or what he needs. Like he is that private, even with us after a decade.
Yeah. So but it's he entrusts him with his students, which that's huge.
Okay, well, I think you're really cool, and I have to pee really bad, so we need to be done. Hey, you want to hear something really cool?
You gonna hang up?